Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the world of entrepreneurship. You guys sent us a ton of really interesting sources about this, and we're excited to kind of break it all down
Yeah,
and figure out, like, what's at the heart of it all, right?
absolutely.
So we're going to be looking at how entrepreneurship is defined, who these entrepreneurial people are, and, maybe even spark some entrepreneurial spirit in you along the way.
I love it. I'm ready. Let's dive in.
Okay, so right off the bat, I'm struck by just how many different definitions of entrepreneurship there are in these sources.
Right.
It's like way more complex than I initially thought.
It really is. It's one of those things where, there's no one-size-fits-all answer. Like trying to define creativity, for
Oh,
example.
I like that.
We all sort of know it when we see it, but trying to put it into words is, well, it's tricky.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good analogy. So if we can't land on like a single perfect definition, where do we even begin?
Well, I think a good place to start is with the word itself. Entrepreneur comes from the French verb entreprendre, which means to undertake. And I think that sense of action, of initiative, is at the core of it all.
So it's not just about having a great idea.
No?
It's about actually going out there and doing something with it.
Exactly. And that something can look very different depending on who you ask. Some of these sources, like Cantillon, define it really broadly, like any kind of self-employment is entrepreneurship.
Wow. So
And then you have others like Schumpeter who are much more focused on innovation, combining resources in new ways to bring something new to the market. And then there's Gartner who emphasizes the creation of entirely new organizations.
okay, so we're talking like freelance work on one end and then massive startups that create whole industries on the other.
Right.
It's all entrepreneurship.
It's all under that umbrella. I think the common thread is that focus on opportunity. It's about seeing those gaps in the market and figuring out how to, capitalize on them, whether that's a new product, a better way of doing things, or tapping into a market that's been overlooked. That's what entrepreneurs do.
It's interesting because that focus on opportunity really connects with the image of the entrepreneur themselves. Right? And these sources paint a pretty fascinating picture, a lot of different perspectives on who that person is.
Oh, absolutely. It's amazing how the very concept of entrepreneur has evolved over time. I mean, in the early days, it was often linked to military leaders, organizers, people who were comfortable taking risks and had, a strong vision. Like there's this great quote from the economist J.B. Say. He described the entrepreneur as someone who shifts economic resources out of an area of lower and into an area of higher productivity and greater yield.
So it's not just about profit.
No,
It's about making a positive impact.
that's how Say saw it, at least. But then you have someone like Schumpeter, who we mentioned before, who had a much more disruptive view. For him, entrepreneurs were these agents of change who shook things up with new technologies and ideas.
Interesting.
And then more recently, there's Pinson, who emphasizes that desire for autonomy,
Yeah.
being in control of your own destiny.
Okay, so we've got the risk taker, the visionary, the master strategist, the disruptor. It almost sounds like we're talking about a superhero here.
Right. It's definitely a romanticized image, but just like with the definition of entrepreneurship itself, there's no one mold for what an entrepreneur looks like. It's more about a certain mindset, a way of approaching the world than a specific set of traits.
And speaking of different ways of approaching the world, some of these sources talk about entrepreneurship, which is basically entrepreneurship happening within like an existing organization, right?
Yeah, exactly. Entrepreneurs have that same drive for innovation, for opportunity, but they're working within a company, not starting their own thing.
So kind of like entrepreneurs, but their impact is felt within the company, not by like creating something totally new.
Precisely. And their success ultimately benefits the larger organization. There's this great example in one of the sources about churches in Nigeria that started diversifying their activities to include things like education and soap making, even water production.
That's really interesting. So even if you're not starting your own company,
Right.
you can still be entrepreneurial in your current role.
Absolutely. It's all about recognizing those opportunities for positive change and then having the initiative to act on them.
That's pretty empowering, actually.
It is.
Okay, so now that we've kind of set the stage and looked at these different definitions, I'm curious, like, what actually makes these entrepreneurial individuals tick?
Yeah.
What are those defining characteristics that set them apart? We have this one source here that lists a whole bunch of them.
Yeah, it's a pretty comprehensive list. And as we've seen, just defining entrepreneur is tricky enough. So Trying to pin down a definitive set of characteristics is, well, it's a challenge.
No.
But there are definitely some common themes that keep popping up.
Well, let's start with one that seems pretty fundamental, especially given all this talk about opportunity and
Okay.
risk tolerance.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a huge one. You're stepping into uncharted territory, making decisions that could have major consequences.
That's like walking a tightrope
Right.
without a net.
Exactly. You have to be comfortable with uncertainty, with the unknown.
The source even mentions entrepreneurs making like critical, enormous decisions that can't be easily reversed, which is pretty intense when you think about it.
It is, but the successful ones, they're not just being reckless, they're taking calculated risks, weighing the potential rewards against the potential downsides.
So it's more about like strategic risk taking than just jumping off a cliff and hoping for the best.
Right. And being adaptable, being able to pivot when things change, because they always do.
So risk tolerance, adaptability, and then what about vision?
Ah, yes, vision. Now that's where it gets really interesting. Entrepreneurs often have this uncanny ability to see things that others don't. They have a sense of what's possible, even when it's not obvious to everyone else.
So they're like looking ahead
Yeah.
while everyone else is like focused on the present moment.
Exactly. And being able to communicate that vision to inspire others to get on board with it, that's crucial too. Think of any successful business leader you admire. Chances are they had a compelling vision that they could articulate and share with others.
Yeah, that makes sense. So we have risk tolerance, vision, and of course, no conversation about entrepreneurship would be complete without talking about creativity and innovation, right?
Absolutely. That's where the magic happens,
Yeah.
Whether it's a groundbreaking product or a completely new way of doing things, entrepreneurs are constantly looking for ways to improve, to disrupt, to create something new and valuable.
And it's not just about coming up with a cool idea.
No.
It's about making that idea a reality, actually bringing it to life.
Precisely. You have to be able to translate those ideas into action. This source we're looking at, it talks about how entrepreneurs are constantly on the lookout for new approaches, new ways to do things better, faster, more efficiently.
So they're doers, not just dreamers.
Exactly.
That's a good distinction. Okay, so we've got risk tolerance, vision, creativity, innovation. It's kind of like a recipe for an amazing human, really.
Right.
Do you think, though, that every successful entrepreneur needs to have all of these qualities, like in equal measure?
That's a great question. I mean, it's easy to think that you need to be this fearless risk taker, a visionary genius, and a creative powerhouse all at the same time. But the reality is much more nuanced than that, I think.
So you don't need to be firing on all cylinders to be a successful entrepreneur.
Exactly. I mean, not everyone has all those qualities in equal measure, right? Some people are amazing at assessing risk. Others might be incredible at, building teams and inspiring people. The key is to be self-aware. Knowing your strengths and weaknesses, and then, if needed, finding partners or mentors who can complement your skill set.
That's a really helpful way to think about it. It makes entrepreneurship feel less intimidating, less about being superhuman, and more about playing to your strengths.
Right.
And building a team where, like, everyone can contribute their best.
Exactly. It's about collaboration, recognizing that you don't have to do it all alone.
Awesome. Well, it feels like we've covered a lot of ground already just in this first part of our deep dive.
We have.
We've looked at different definitions of entrepreneurship, explored the different facets of what it means to be an entrepreneur, and even touched on that whole concept of entrepreneurship.
We have. And there's still so much more to unpack. As you continue exploring these sources, I encourage you to think about what really resonates with you. What opportunities are you ready to discover and pursue?
That's a great question to ponder. What excites you? What problems are you passionate about solving? What impact do you want to make on the world?
Because ultimately, entrepreneurship, in all its forms, is about possibility and action.
It's about seeing those possibilities and having the courage to, go after them.
Exactly. So keep those questions in mind as we continue this deep dive into the world of entrepreneurship. Because at its heart, entrepreneurship is all about recognizing and seizing those opportunities.
Right. And we were just talking about some of those core characteristics of entrepreneurs, those things that help them see and act on those opportunities.
Yeah. And, we barely scratched the surface of that list. There's so much more to explore.
There is. I'm looking at this list now, and there's mental ability, communication skills, human skills.
It's like a whole recipe for a well-rounded person.
It really is. Let's unpack mental ability a little bit.
Okay.
What does that actually mean for an entrepreneur? Does it mean you have to be a genius?
necessarily. I mean, intelligence is definitely helpful, but I think mental ability in this context is more about having a sharp, agile mind,
Right.
being able to analyze situations, anticipate potential problems, and make good decisions under pressure. It's that ability to think strategically.
So it's more about like how you think
Right.
than just having a high IQ.
Exactly. Entrepreneurs often have to make decisions with limited information and not a lot of time.
Yeah.
They need to be able to assess risk, weigh different options, and adapt their plans as things change.
That makes sense. And I imagine that ties in pretty closely with communication skills, which is also on this list.
Oh, absolutely. Communication is key. Entrepreneurs are constantly communicating with their team, with investors, with
And
customers.
everyone.
Yeah, they need to be able to articulate their vision clearly, persuade people, build relationships,
And this source actually highlights the importance of having a good feedback system.
right?
So it's not just about talking, it's about listening too,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. The most successful entrepreneurs, they're usually great listeners. They're always seeking feedback from, the customers, their employees, their mentors.
It's a two-way street.
It is. And they use that feedback to get better, to refine their products, their processes, their whole approach. It's all about continuous learning and evolution.
Okay, so we've got mental agility, communication skills.
Hmm.
What about human skills? Is that just a fancy way of saying be nice to people?
Well, being nice is definitely part of it.
Okay.
But human skills go deeper than that. It's really about having a strong understanding of people, you know? Knowing how to motivate them, inspire them, build trust, resolve conflicts.
So it's like leadership,
Yes.
empathy,
Yes.
emotional intelligence,
Mm.
all those things that make someone a good leader and a good team player.
Exactly. Because entrepreneurs rarely work in isolation, right? They need to build teams, manage people effectively,
Yeah.
create a positive work environment. It's all about those human connections.
Yeah, the source really emphasizes the importance of maintaining strong relationships with both customers and employees.
Right. And that's something that can easily get overlooked, I think. Those human skills, that ability to connect with people on a genuine level, it's just as important as, technical expertise when it comes to building a successful business.
Speaking of technical skills, that's another one on the list. What kinds of technical skills do entrepreneurs need? Like, does everyone need to be a coding whiz these days?
It really depends on the business. Some entrepreneurs might need deep knowledge of a particular industry or technology, while others might need to be more savvy in areas like marketing, finance, operations.
So it's not about being a jack of all trades.
No,
It's about having the right expertise for the specific venture you're pursuing.
exactly. And even if you don't personally possess all the technical skills, you can always, learn them, hire people who do, partner with experts in those areas.
That makes me feel better.
Mhm.
It makes it seem less about being like this perfect, all-knowing entrepreneur and more about, like you were saying earlier, playing to your strengths.
Right. And recognizing that you can build a team that has all the bases covered.
Okay, good. So technical knowledge, but then this source also really emphasizes the importance of self-confidence,
Yeah.
which makes sense. I mean, starting a business takes a lot of guts,
It does. You're putting yourself out there, taking risks, facing potential rejection.
like a roller coaster ride.
It really is. There are going to be ups and downs, moments of doubt, times when you just want to give up. And it's that self-belief that keeps you going.
Yeah, the source uses the phrase confidence in the face of difficulties and discouraging circumstances.
That's a good one.
It really captures that resilience, that ability to keep going even when things get tough.
It does. And it's not just about believing in yourself. It's about believing in your vision, your product, your team.
It's like this unshakable belief that what you're doing is important and that you can make it happen.
Exactly. And speaking of making things happen, another characteristic that comes up a lot is innovative skills.
Right, right. This is where things get really exciting because it's all about like creating something new, right?
Yeah, it's that spark of creativity, that ability to see things differently, to come up with solutions that no one else has thought of before.
And it's not just about inventing some new gadget, right?
No.
It could be about finding a new way to market a product or streamlining a process or even like coming up with a whole new business model.
Exactly. Innovation can take so many forms, and it's a crucial driver of entrepreneurial success.
I love that entrepreneurship is about so much more than just making money.
Oh, absolutely.
It's about creation. It's about solving problems. It's about making a positive impact on the world.
And speaking of impact, another characteristic that's often highlighted is being results-oriented.
Right. So it's not enough to just have a good idea. You actually have to execute it, make it happen.
Exactly. Entrepreneurs are doers, They set goals, make plans, and work tirelessly to achieve those goals.
They're not afraid to roll up their sleeves and get things done.
Exactly. There's another great phrase in this source. It talks about total commitment as a defining characteristic of entrepreneurs.
Yeah, it sounds like it's not just a job.
Right. It's a way of life. It's about being all in, dedicating yourself to making your vision a reality.
There's that saying, entrepreneurship is living a few years of your life like most people won't, so you can spend the rest of your life like most people can.
Yeah, I love that one. And it really speaks to that level of commitment and drive that it often takes to be successful.
But it's not just about, like, working yourself to the bone, right? The source also mentions the importance of being calm and focused, even amidst all the chaos.
Yeah, that's huge. Entrepreneurship can be incredibly stressful.
Yeah, for sure.
There's always something going on, something demanding your attention. So being able to stay calm under pressure, prioritize effectively, maintain that focus, that's essential for navigating the ups and downs.
It's like being the eye of the storm, staying steady even when everything around you is swirling.
Exactly. And, this whole idea of calmness ties into another important characteristic: tolerance.
Tolerance. In what sense?
Well, remember, entrepreneurs work with a lot of different people, employees, customers, investors, suppliers. Everyone brings their own perspectives, their own personalities, their own way of doing things.
Right, so it's about being able to navigate those differences.
Yeah, to build bridges, to find common ground.
To be flexible.
Exactly. Entrepreneurs need to be able to understand and appreciate different viewpoints.
Yeah.
Be open to feedback, willing to compromise when necessary. It's about creating a culture of collaboration and respect.
Okay, so we've got calmness, focus, tolerance.
Right.
We're building quite the impressive list of characteristics here.
We are. But, it's important to remember that no one person is going to perfectly embody all of these traits. We all have our strengths and weaknesses, right? And part of the entrepreneurial journey is figuring out what those are and, playing to your strengths while also recognizing where you might need some support.
Yeah, and it's encouraging to know that these qualities can be cultivated. You can learn and grow over time.
Absolutely. It's a continuous process. And that brings us to the final characteristic on our list: balance.
Balance. How does that fit in with entrepreneurship? I mean, it seems like it's all about, like, hustling and working nonstop.
Well, yes and no. I mean, it's true that entrepreneurship is incredibly demanding. It takes a lot of time, energy, focus. But it's crucial to maintain a sense of balance in your life.
Yeah.
Between work and personal life, between taking risks and being cautious, between pushing yourself and knowing your limits.
So it's about finding that sweet spot where you're fully engaged in your work but not burning yourself out.
Exactly. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Right.
Right.
You need to pace yourself, prioritize your well-being, and make sure you're not neglecting other important aspects of your life. You can't pour from an empty cup.
That's such a good point. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of building a business, but it's important to remember that you're a whole person, not just an entrepreneur.
Exactly.
This has been such an insightful conversation. We've covered so much ground, from defining entrepreneurship to exploring these amazing characteristics that entrepreneurs possess.
It's been a great exploration.
I'm feeling inspired. What about you?
Me too. I'm curious, what's resonating with you from all this? What qualities or insights are really standing out?
I think the emphasis on human skills is really striking a chord with me. It's easy to get so focused on the technical aspects of business that we forget about the importance of building strong relationships with people.
Yeah, I agree. Those human skills are what allow you to build a team, inspire your employees, create a loyal customer base. They're the foundation of any successful venture, really.
And the whole concept of entrepreneurship is really intriguing, too. It's empowering to realize that you don't have to start your own company to make a real difference in the world. You can bring that entrepreneurial spirit to your current role and create positive change from within.
Absolutely. Entrepreneurship is all about recognizing those opportunities for improvement and having the initiative to act, regardless of your job title or position. It's a mindset, a way of approaching your work with a proactive, innovative spirit.
This deep dive has given me a lot to think about. It's shown me that entrepreneurship is so much more than just a business model. It's a way of looking at the world with curiosity, with creativity, with a willingness to take risks.
I love that perspective. It's about seeing possibilities where others see obstacles and having the courage to pursue those possibilities even when things are uncertain. It's just about being a change maker, a problem solver, a leader.
And what's really fascinating is that so many of these entrepreneurial qualities, like risk tolerance, vision, creativity, they're not fixed traits. They can be learned and developed over time.
That's so true. It's like a muscle that you can train. The more you practice thinking creatively, the more you seek out new information, the more you step outside your comfort zone, the stronger those entrepreneurial muscles become.
That's such an encouraging thought. It makes entrepreneurship feel less like something you're either born with or not, and more like a conscious choice, a journey of growth and development.
It is a journey. And speaking of journeys, the source also talks about some interesting perspectives on entrepreneurship from different fields like economics, sociology, and psychology.
Right. It's like each discipline has its own unique lens through which it views entrepreneurship.
Exactly. Economists, for example, they tend to focus on the entrepreneur's role in economic growth and innovation. They see them as these key drivers of progress,
Oh.
the ones who disrupt markets and create new opportunities.
So for economists, it's all about the impact entrepreneurs have on the larger economic landscape.
Yeah, they see them as vital for creating jobs, generating wealth, and driving progress.
And what about sociologists? What's their take on entrepreneurship?
Sociologists often view it through a more social lens. They're interested in how entrepreneurship shapes communities, how it influences social mobility, how it can even challenge existing power structures.
So it's not just about economic impact, it's about the social fabric of society.
Right. Sociologists recognize that entrepreneurship can have a profound impact on how we organize ourselves, how we live, how we work, how we relate to each other.
And psychologists, what do they have to say about all this?
Psychologists are fascinated by the inner workings of the entrepreneurial mind.
Yeah.
They study things like motivation, risk tolerance, resilience, all those psychological factors that contribute to entrepreneurial success.
The source mentions Schumpeter's idea that entrepreneurs are driven by a will to power and a desire to create something new, and then there's McClelland's focus on the need for achievement.
Those are great examples, and they really highlight how important the psychological dimension is to understanding entrepreneurship.
This deep dive has taken us on quite a journey, from defining entrepreneurship to exploring the characteristics of entrepreneurs and even delving into the psychology of what motivates them.
It has been a fascinating exploration. And as you continue working through these sources, I encourage you to think about how you can apply these insights to your own life, your own career, your own endeavors.
What opportunities are you seeing? What problems are you passionate about solving? What kind of impact do you want to make?
Because entrepreneurship, in all its forms, is about making things happen.
It's about turning ideas into reality.
Exactly. And creating a future that's brighter than the present. So go out there, explore, experiment, see what you can achieve.
It's amazing when you really start digging into it.
I know, right?
Entrepreneurship is so much more than just starting a business.
Absolutely. It's a mindset, a way of approaching the world.
And remember that example we talked about earlier?
Which one?
The churches in Nigeria.
Oh, yeah.
That really highlights how entrepreneurial thinking can thrive anywhere, even within existing organizations, structures.
Exactly. It's about recognizing opportunities for positive change and having that initiative to act on them.
Whether you're, leading a team, improving a process, or just bringing a fresh perspective to your work.
Right. And the thing is, those characteristics we've been talking about, the vision, the creativity, the risk tolerance, they're not necessarily things you're just born with.
You're saying anyone can develop those skills.
I really believe so. It's like learning anything new. It takes practice, dedication, and a willingness to, kind of push yourself outside your comfort zone.
So even if you don't see yourself as like the typical entrepreneur,
Right.
you can still cultivate those qualities over time.
Absolutely. It's like a muscle you can train.
I like that.
The more you exercise those creative muscles, the more you're open to new information, new challenges, the more naturally those entrepreneurial instincts will develop.
That's really encouraging to hear.
It is. It is.
And you know what else has been really helpful?
What's that?
Looking at entrepreneurship through these different lenses,
Hmm.
like economics, sociology, psychology. Each discipline brings its own unique perspective to the table.
Oh, absolutely. It's fascinating to see how those perspectives differ and also how they complement each other.
Like economists, they tend to focus on the entrepreneur's role in, driving economic growth and innovation.
Right. They see entrepreneurs as these key players in the economy.
They're the ones who disrupt markets,
Yeah.
create new opportunities.
Exactly. For them, it's all about the impact entrepreneurs have on the big picture, job creation, wealth generation, overall progress.
And then you have the sociologists who are more interested in like the social implications of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, they're looking at how it shapes communities, how it affects social mobility, how it can challenge those existing power structures.
So it's not just about the economic impact, it's about the social fabric of society as a whole.
Right, because entrepreneurship, it has the potential to change how we live, how we work, how we interact with each other.
And then there's the psychologists who like dive into the minds of entrepreneurs.
Right, exactly. They're fascinated by what makes entrepreneurs tick, what drives them, what motivates them to take those risks and, pursue those big dreams.
The source mentioned Schumpeter's idea that it's all about a will to power, that desire to create something new.
Right, and then there's McClellan, who focuses on the need for achievement as a primary motivator.
So many different factors at play.
There are, and understanding those psychological dynamics, it's essential for, truly grasping the entrepreneurial spirit.
This deep dive has been so eye-opening. We've explored so much, from defining entrepreneurship to examining the characteristics of entrepreneurs and even getting a glimpse into their psychology.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. And as we wrap up, I'm left with this feeling of, like, possibility. Like if entrepreneurship is a mindset, a way of approaching the world, then anyone can tap into that.
I agree, and I think that's an important takeaway for everyone listening. Entrepreneurship, it's not just for those, stereotypical business people. It's for anyone who wants to make a difference, who sees opportunities for positive change, and has the courage to act on them.
Whether that's within a large organization or by starting something completely new.
Exactly. And it's not about having all the answers or being perfect.
Yeah.
It's about having the willingness to learn, to grow, to experiment, to take risks.
To embrace the unknown.
Yes. So as we close out this deep dive, I want to leave you all with a challenge. What opportunities are calling to you? What problems are you passionate about solving? What kind of impact do you want to make on the world?
Because ultimately, entrepreneurship in all its forms is about taking action.
It's about turning those ideas into reality, about creating a future that's brighter than the present.
So go out there, explore, experiment, and see what you can achieve. We can't wait to see what you do.